Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Lisa Maurer, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The system provides clean funding for qualified participating candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. These include contributions and spending limits, forgoing special interest money, and participating in commission debates. Now, tonight we encourage audience questions, so please utilize the note card that was given to you when you entered the room and hold them up when you have written a question on there. Our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. If you have a question for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for approximately an hour, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements. The first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes for each candidate to answer the same question. After all candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. We will rotate which candidate responds first. The second half will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer and an optional 30-second comment from the other candidate. And we'll end with 1-minute closing statements. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. So, tonight's participants are Vicki Alger, a Republican candidate for State Senator, District Number 24, and Dave Alger, a Republican candidate for State Representative, District Number 24. So the order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name, starting with the House. Vicki, will you start the opening remarks, please?
Thanks so much, Lisa. And I would like to thank all of you for being here tonight. It's really great to have another opportunity to speak with neighbors from our LD24 community. I'm Vicki Alger, and I have to say I'm really proud of our voters. Last month, we made a decision and we voted for change. We voted for new voices because we want a different path. And that's exactly why I'm here, to offer an alternative path away from divisive behavior and entrenched interests surrounding incumbents who have spent far too long in office. And we can have those voices in our legislature. We can have lawmakers representing us who forge consensus and also work hard and fight for solutions if we reject incumbents who are especially deaf to us and the voters, and have so poisoned relationships down at the Capitol that they can't even get basic bills passed. So I ask you to continue to vote for meaningful change, and I will work so hard to listen and actually hear all voices in our LD24
Thank you.
community.
Okay, Dave, can we hear your opening remarks, please?
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who is here, our friends and neighbors who we've come to know over the last year and a half that we've been campaigning. It's really an honor to have a chance to stand for this House seat. I want to echo the fact that as we've gone from door to door, from Willett precinct over to Salt River precinct, from Encanto up to Virginia and beyond, we keep hearing, no one's listening. We want to listen. I want to listen. We have a wonderful, vibrant district with people who may not always agree on what the solutions are, but they have solutions. Until they are heard, until we all as neighbors can talk together, can work together, then we're not truly represented. And so that's why I'm here. And thank you for your being here, whether here today or watching this online. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will begin the portion of the debate where each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the same question. And Dave, you'll start out for us.
Okay.
And the question is, if elected, what would be your top priorities and what would be the first piece of legislation you would want to submit?
Thank you. My first priority as a House of Representatives legislator is to get a real voice for everyone in the district into the legislature, which I don't feel is happening now. As far as legislation priorities, I want to make sure that people within the district have the freedom to pursue what they think is important. What I think, what you think, what someone else thinks, it shouldn't be constrained. Everyone should have the opportunity to pursue what they think is important. And one of the things that I've found in my 20 years here in Arizona is there are just too many ways that government intrudes. Family court is one, DCS, the foster care system. The things that happen have been shocking. And that would be the source of my first legislation, starting with an audit of each of those institutions so we can finally know what's going on behind the curtain. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question.
Well, being here, having grown up here, one thing that I always valued is my family moved from Massachusetts when I was a young girl. My parents used to joke that we're refugees from Taxachusetts because they came out here for better opportunities. My father started a business, and I guess back in the day there was no such thing as too big to fail. So we either worked hard and succeeded or would have to start over again. We were willing to take this risk, and we have been successful, and members of my family have been able to pursue our dreams, even though they've been very, very various dreams. So something that I would like to pursue and is close to my heart is education and parents' right to education. We're obviously a national leader in parental choice in education. We have more options about not just where, but how we educate our children than any other state in the country. But I'm seeing a very disturbing trend. I'm very concerned about how willing we are these days to accept what I call diktats from DC. DC seems to be far too involved in education, imposing far too many one-size-fits-all, quote-unquote, solutions that I don't see working for anybody, whether we're talking about the previous No Child Left Behind or today with Common Core, too much testing. So in my opinion, we need to work together, and I would like to do a federal audit of, before we agree to any program, we make sure we understand what exactly we're going to have to do, how much of our hard-earned money we're going to have to spend to get our own hard-earned dollars back. And is this really good for students? Because we need more local control, parents and educators, not more bureaucrats from DC telling us how to educate our children.
Thank you. Dave, your additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Lisa. And I think that is a continuing point, the idea that we have too many mandates that are forced on us. The state is bad enough, but then we let the federal government impose itself on us. How can people thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C. have any idea what fits for us? And so any legislation needs to always take into account that idea, that if we're going to agree to conditions, they need to be conditions right for Arizona.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. And this time, Vicki will start. If elected, what steps would you take to continue to diversify Arizona's economy, and what industries and sectors would you focus on?
That's such an important question, particularly now as we finally come out of the economic recession and we're seeing record-breaking growth, job creation, and funds into our general fund. This is such an exciting time after so many years of really hard times. My philosophy is this. I think we need to make Arizona a welcoming place for businesses of all shapes and sizes. If I've learned anything in the past several decades, is that government's not good at picking winners and losers. So I think rather than government betting our hard-earned tax dollars on this new big thing or that new big thing, we have to make Arizona a welcoming place for existing businesses, businesses who want to move here, and businesses that at this point we might not be able to envision. We want to be a place that nurtures entrepreneurship, opportunity, and we want to be a place where people we can take a risk, we can fulfill our dreams and pursue them. And I think that's the way we benefit everybody, and it really is a policy that I think is a tide that lifts all boats.
Thank you. Dave, same question.
We have so much creativity in Arizona, and I agree that we don't know where the next great idea is going to come from. And we need to make sure that there is the room for that great idea to come. When I left the Navy 20 years ago and began my IT career, I chose Arizona for my home. And many large and small companies have chosen to make the same decision. Right now, Arizona, which used to be the default place to go to find a large pool of tech talent, is now suffering the same as many other places, where there's high competition for knowledgeable, experienced people. And like I like to tell friends who are frustrated with their jobs, if you can make a list with steps from 1 to 10 on how to accomplish something, you could be successful in IT. And whether it's IT or some other economic driver that we don't know yet or that we're holding back, we need to make sure that we are minimizing regulations while protecting citizens and cities. And it's a tough balance. But if you're going to be wrong on that, we need to be biased toward the idea of leaving the door open, then being watchful and closing it if we've opened it too far. In addition, we need to make sure that we are making sure that as the Arizona Constitution requires a free or nearly free education, that education is an effective one, and that it is free or as nearly free as possible, as the Constitution requires. And we can do that, but not if we're building Taj Mahals that serve everyone and everything but someone's bright future. So let's make sure that the resources that we are putting forward to diversify are being diversified truly well. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki, your additional 30 seconds.
Well, I would amplify that, and I think that's something that we really need to focus on, particularly as it relates to education, that we're going to pursue, we're going to direct extra funding to maybe this field or that field. I think the most important thing is that when we talk about education, the more we can actually invest in individual people, and it doesn't mean right out of high school or this class of people or that class of people. Let's invest in individuals and stop putting so much money into bureaucracies where we have no idea where it goes.
Thank you. Next question, and Dave, you'll start this one. What do you think the legislature can do to improve the state's educational system?
Thank you. Transparency is the starting point for me. I know the desire is to run straight to the answer of put more money in, but I happen to have an in with a source who is very knowledgeable about the education system, and she's been kind enough to educate me over the years. And we also have some very good reports out there, like the Auditor General report. And what we've been seeing is the percentage of money in the classroom, going to the classroom, going down and down and down. The fact that we don't have teachers who are regularly making $60,000 to $90,000 really makes me angry. because the money is there. Stop and think about it a minute. The average amount of money spent on a student, K through 12 in Arizona, is about $10,000. You know, averaging out. Say you have 25 to 30 kids. That's $250,000 to $300,000. Are you really telling me that what we're paying teachers now is all we can pay? That's not right. We're chasing too many federal mandates. And we can improve education fantastically if we put the education where the children are being educated, not only in the classroom of public schools, but putting it in the hands of parents who want to find a different choice. Because whether it's at their public school for the district, whether it's their charter school, whether it's another choice, we're here to educate children. We're not here to keep bureaucracies alive. And let's be real, no one's going to run en masse from the schools. People like their neighborhood school. But for those who want something different because it suits their child better, we need to make sure that they can choose that option.
Thank you. Vicki, same question.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, I would certainly agree with that giving parents maximum freedom over not just where, but how they educate their children is critical. But I'd like to take it from another side as well. What I've seen over the years is children's second educators, because parents are children's first educators, have less and less freedom over the classroom. They have less and less freedom to be great educators. You look at how curriculum is decided. Do you want to see one of the biggest, I'm going to call it money sucks, is a certain part of administration that just comes up with curriculum. Teachers are the ones parents look to for how do we design a great curriculum for my child. We've removed it out of the classroom, out of the district building. It's as far away as state capitol and DC now. And you know what you get as we're clamoring for more and more personalized options for all children? What we're seeing is this homogenization under the guise of accountability. Let me say one of the biggest fallacies that I encounter, and this is something that you encounter across the political spectrum. No part of the aisle has a monopoly on this one. Accountability is the same as testing, 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 testing. I believe in diagnostic testing. I started out teaching college students, and I need to know where my students are as often as possible so I can intervene so we don't get to the end of the term and, oh my gosh, someone's really, really struggling. So I would say the more that we can restore local control, and by local control I want to be absolutely clear. Local control for me would be parents and school board members who are elected. We have to get people over this fear of being a school board member. So elected school board members, not just appointees from superintendents, that sort of freedom and innovation I think is a key.
Thank you. Dave, your additional 30 seconds.
I'd like to emphasize the idea of more participation in school board races. I had considered also running for Scottsdale School Board this election cycle, but when I found out how high the signature requirements were, it was a little bit daunting, and I knew I needed to focus on this race because it was so important. And maybe I will next election. But I think that we need to make it more available as an option for everyone.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and Vicki, you'll start this round. This is a question from the audience regarding your position about family law and also how courts are currently functioning and also changes that you may intend to make around family law.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for that question, because that's something that a few years ago would never have entered my mind to talk about family law, family court. Over the years, having experienced family court in Maricopa, let me tell you, it was not what I read in graduate school about Aristotle. You know, the law is reason without passion. That sounds very good, but Aristotle was never in a Maricopa family court. First things first, judges have to actually read the law. Number two, Judges have to apply the law. Number 3, when a judge makes a ruling, he or she has to explicitly state findings of fact and rulings of law. I've seen so many times, just personally, and I've heard horror stories from so many parents who are just fighting. They're sacrificing everything just to keep their kids in their lives. And judges come in and say, I know you had, 3 hours, but I'm going to boil it down to half an hour. Go. Or I've actually seen judges come in when there are stacks of reports because you have psychological reports, all sorts of extra reports that the court mandated and all these experts weigh in on. And this takes months and months and months, sometimes years. I've actually seen a judge waltz into court and say, I haven't read anything. Absolutely not. No one should have that kind of unbridled power and not have to follow the rules, ever, particularly when you're talking about families and you're talking about children could be removed from their parents' lives. So I think judges need to follow the laws just like the rest of us, and when they don't follow the laws and they get all creative at someone else's expense, they need to be held accountable. And by held accountable, called out publicly, they are fined and they are sanctioned. So I'd also like to see some more education by the Supreme Court on here's the law, here's how you write a brief, your decisions.
Thank you. Dave, same question.
Thank you. As you can guess, I've also personally experienced the family law system here in Maricopa County and therefore Arizona. And I could never have dreamed how dysfunctional it is, how non-transparent it is, how many judges think that they have a right to step into people's lives and make decisions on behalf of the parents, to go ahead and bankrupt people, claiming that it's for everyone's good when everyone suffers, and to just blatantly ignore the law without consequences. And this is where, when I am elected to the legislature, in the House, I will push for immediate auditing and oversight of the judiciary that is just not happening now. We are seeing a Supreme Court, appellate courts, and the county courts, and the clerks of the court associated with them, closing down all avenues of information and acting without accountability. I looked at the recommendations for judicial retention for this next election, and I know some of those judges either directly or through others who are here and elsewhere. And the fact that none of these folks have been called out publicly for repeatedly violating fundamental rights guaranteed through cases like Troxel v. Granville, Meyer v. Nebraska, Pierce v. Sisters, others. I don't have a law degree, but I know what these court cases say. But it's pretty apparent that many of the judges out there don't. So transparency through oversight that has been too lax from the legislature, forcing open records that are now too hard to get, and forcing judges to justify their actions on the record to make sure that if they make a decision that, like in my case, ends up costing you $250,000, there's a good reason.
Thank you. Vicki, your additional 30 seconds.
Well, I would obviously agree with that, but I think you need someone representing us in the legislature who's going to fight for the little guy, because that's one thing that sadly we've experienced and we've learned from so many other people, that if you don't have a ton of money and if you are not, have a certain legal savvy, the deck is really stacked against you and your family. And I think we also need people in the legislature who are not afraid of judges, the folks in the robes who understand the Constitution and say what you're doing isn't right and we're going to hold you accountable.
Thank you. The next question, we'll have Dave start. What do you think the role of government should be in helping Arizonans and their families get out of poverty?
Thank you, and that's very important. It doesn't do us any good to grow if we don't grow together. And I am not in any way a fan of any kind of command economy, huge government bureaucracy, or anything of the sort. I think that people who truly want to better their circumstances will. We have a country that was built on people working hard and often creating whole new industries. And that came with the fact that they were able to do so and not constrained. One of the things that I see is too much regulation of folks who are trying to help others. It's almost the proverbial 10-year-old with a lemonade stand getting arrested. While it's not quite that I'm talking about, we do still have a lot of that kind of bureaucracy here in Arizona, preventing people from bettering themselves, but also preventing people with skills and the desire to help from helping others because of some claim that is somehow going to be harmful if there is not some government worker watching over everyone's shoulders. I'm thrilled to be part of different charities like Maggie's Place for single mothers and St. Mary's Food Bank and its network, and helping out in our local schools and helping out on our local streets. I have lived and worked and helped people from the streets of Kuwait to the streets of Phoenix. There are more than enough people who want to help. Government can be a facilitator, but most of all, government needs to not be a barrier. And so to help people in poverty, I want to make sure that government gets out of the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki, same question.
Well, I think along those same lines, one of the biggest challenges for folks in government is actually taking stock and saying, wait, before I become the story or I become the driver of a new program, let's take an inventory of what's already out there. Because I think of, for example, homelessness, which is a horrific problem, but it's a solvable problem. Within a stone's throw of just where we live, we have our faith-based communities are helping. We have Helping Hands, which is a wonderful nonprofit doing such great work. So I think the first step is don't assume that government's going to run in and save the day and we're going to create a new program and a new bureaucracy and we raise taxes here. Let's see what resources we have at the local, the county, and the state levels. Who's already doing great work? And maybe if we roll back some regulations, we help publicize these events or give these organizations or try and promote the work that they're doing, we can build on the great foundation that's already there. By focusing on that, government can see where the gaps are. And maybe that's where we direct very precious, limited resources. I think the biggest problem, again, is let's not invent the wheel. There are so many great resources out there, so many experts out there in the charitable and nonprofit sectors. Let's not crowd them out. Let's work together and have the humility to say, I don't have to be the one, running the show or front and center. I can be in a supportive role, and sometimes it's the best thing you can do.
Thank you. Dave, your additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Lisa. I would also like to see us compare when government provides the services versus when individual or private organizations do. And through tax credits, create a competition and let's see who does better. And let's, through those tax credits, let people direct their desire for charity and the funds to make that happen to those organizations that are having the best impact. People, if given the opportunity to retain their money and give it to someone who is trying to make a positive difference, will. We are a very, very generous society. And the biggest issue that keeps us from being so is often the taxes that we have to pay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Vicki, you'll start this time. What can be done to improve our safety from the phenomenon of texting and driving?
Lisa, thank you for that question. And that's something that, who would have thought 10 years ago we would even be having this conversation? I think we have to expand laws so that there's criminal distraction. And today it's texting. Who knows what it's going to be in the next 10 years? Distracted driving, impaired driving. Let's face it, I have 4 teenage stepsons, and they're all getting ready to drive. And one thing that we emphasize all the time is you are getting prepared to get into a 1,500-pound killing machine. I think driving has become such a commonplace part of our life, we forget how really dangerous it is. I think it's the most dangerous activity most Americans ever do. So I think expanding laws so that we encompass distracted and criminal impairment. And I also think there's been a lot of really good public awareness campaigns. I mean, my gosh, is it worth it to hurt or worse yourself or someone else? One thing I do want to be careful about, though, is not overreaching, not going too far. I don't want to be like California is. We have seen so many laws that California does, well-intentioned. I'm not questioning the intentions, but they become so overhanded that we really do burden law enforcement. I really think the importance of safety behind a wheel starts with families. Educate your children. And if you do, heaven forbid, get into an accident because of distracted driving, texting, or what have you, I think there need to be stiff penalties. So your first time isn't yours or somebody else's last time.
Thank you, Dave. Same question.
I agree that we don't want to get into minute detail in every single law. We have the privilege of driving, and it is a privilege. It's not a right. And no matter what you're doing, our laws need to encompass the idea that this is a very dangerous activity, one of the most dangerous things that humans do, and that driving unsafely through demonstrated inattention, demonstrated activity while you're driving, swerving, suddenly braking, whatnot. Look, we cannot be there watching over everyone's shoulders. And I don't want a society where we have a camera watching us all the time, or some other outrageous, extreme idea of trying to prevent ahead of time. But when people do make poor choices, when people do endanger others, especially when it's a privileged activity like driving, I agree, it needs to be a very strong response. We all had to take a driving test to begin with. If someone demonstrates that they're no longer abiding by what they were taught and had to demonstrate, at a minimum, they need to go back and demonstrate how they truly can drive safely. But it needs to be crafted so that the burden of doing so really makes an impression. Now, others may make other choices that are more dangerous. And again, our laws need to encompass dangerous behavior, unsafe behavior, obviously, but we don't want to be creating separate laws for separate actions, because then we create holes through which people can escape when they behave as they shouldn't and behave dangerously. So when people fail to behave as they should, let's make sure that we are reviewing our laws to make sure that the penalty is stiff enough that if they don't learn it the first time, they certainly will after the second. And for those who endanger life, DUI laws are a good example of how stiffly we should go. And leave it to the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki, your additional 30-second response.
No, I agree. Aside from when we have young people learning to drive, emphasize you're behind a killing machine, and that sort of education and training, I think a great preventative measure is very, very stiff penalties for distracted criminal impairment.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to transition to the second part of the debate, where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Additionally, the other candidate will have an optional 30 seconds to also address the question. Now remember, you can still submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. And so our first question will be for Dave.
Okay.
And Dave, your question is, what is your position on an expanded public school community college driver's education program for persons obtaining a driver's license?
When I was in high school, I took my driver's training at school, at my high school, and it worked out quite well. And I don't have a problem with the idea that people who are of the age that we normally think of as starting driving, being able to take advantage of such a program. What concerns me about ideas like that is that we need to make sure that these are not excuses for making our already overburdened schools all things to all people. Our schools exist to educate our children, and we don't want that kind of mission creep to overburden them. So I think that there is always a place, if the school chooses as part of their portfolio to provide services, whether it be the community college level, the high school level, but we need to make it a choice and not a mandate.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds if you would like them, optionally.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I absolutely agree that it should be a choice for schools, but I'd like to offer another suggestion. I think we should have the more instructors, the more options we have for teaching driver's education, the better chance that we have really high quality driver's ed from a variety of providers. I don't know, I like the idea of insurance companies who pay for your insurance, get them invested in training young drivers because they have literally a vested interest in doing a really good job certifying drivers and an ongoing interest in making sure that they stay good drivers over the long term.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Vicki, this one is for you. An audience member would like for you to speak to your experience visiting voters in LD24. How many? What conversations did you have? What was that journey like?
It's been quite a journey since late 2016. And I think probably the most surprising thing is I had no idea that my neighbor over here and I had so many similarities. So it's been a real opportunity to bring things together, bring people together and going back and seeing them. One thing that I'm not as happy about, but it squares with and I think it's fair to say my husband's experience, is so many times people say, I have lived here for years, decades. I didn't even know who was representing me, and they have never spoken to me. There have been people who said, I try and call down to the legislature. I know who's representing me. I don't get a phone call back. If I go and testify, I'm not even acknowledged or recognized. So sadly, that's been a big part of it. But it's nice going back and seeing people again and seeing some familiar faces here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is unbelievable how many people you get the chance to meet. I think most of all, among the tens of thousands of people whose doors we've stopped at, and literally thousands of people who we've met, I think of Francisco over in Canto, who 7 a.m. sees me walking through his neighborhood distributing literature and pulls up next to me in this big old truck and asks me, rightly, hey, what are you doing? And so I walked over, sweat dripping down my face, clothes soaked, hand him one of the flyers and say, we're here because we want to represent you. His face lit up, turned his music down a little, but not a little bit, or not completely. And so we sat there, my leaning on the edge of his truck, and we just talked. And there have been different versions of that over and over and over again. And the one thing I don't hear is, hey, Leela stopped by. Or I don't hear, hey, Ken stop by. Well, Ken's gone now. My question is, do we want the voices of people who do stop by and chat, or do we want the same old thing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. And this one, Dave, you will start. What can we do to improve DCS, the Department of Child Services?
This is something near and dear to my heart. Parents put their sweat, their tears, their whole selves into raising their kids. Not every parent is perfect, but we are pulling far too many kids out of households for unbelievably specious reasons. Very recently, we are starting to see DCS being required to use warrants. And this is already existing law that has been settled. But again, we have sitting judges in juvenile courts who are rubber stamping activities like this, violating people's rights. Kids need their parents, even if they're not perfect. What DCS needs to be doing is helping, not destroying families. And so some of my first legislative initiatives will be an explicit warrant requirement beyond even what we have now, a limiting of immunity, because there are 5 separate federal lawsuits going on right now that are fairly successful. Arizona isn't going to pay millions, and we need to make sure that those who violate rights know that they stand a personal risk and they can't hide behind the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Vicki, you can have 30 seconds to respond to this one.
And to follow on that thought, if DCS is so busy taking children out of homes that really most people would say that isn't required, what's happening when those thankfully statistically rare occasions but tragic occasions when you have horrific abuses going on and where we need those children to be removed, we need the services, and if we're so busy, I would like to look to see if there are any perverse financial incentives that are behind taking children away from families who really don't deserve it.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Vicki, how would you propose reducing opioid abuse in our state?
I wish that weren't a question. And again, a few years ago, who would have imagined that we would be here having this discussion? I think first and foremost that we have to focus on treatment, not punishment. Because my understanding is that these are such addictive medications. And when we just recently talked to an emergency room doctor and said, we're giving people of all ages now so many types of medications that interact so differently, in addition to pain management medication. I think what we have to do is really focus our efforts on getting treatment, on prevention, and I would like to take law enforcement out of the equation, because so many times you get younger people or people who've just made a bad choice, and we put them into the prison system, and that just compounds the problem. So I'd like to focus on treatment and prevention.
Thank you. Dave, your 30 seconds.
I agree that we are making this a law enforcement criminal issue far too often. If someone has not harmed another person, has not violated one of those criminal statutes, then why are we throwing them into prison where not only are they losing a huge chunk of their life that could be used to recover, and yes, there is treatment, there are programs in prison, but there's also the gang culture, the simple anger. We need to stop throwing people in prison and turning them into the future criminals.
Thank you. Next question for you, Dave. What is your position on directing a percentage of education budget toward teacher salary at the district level?
As I said before, the fact that the percentage of dollars going into the classroom per the Auditor General's report is hovering around half and is often less than half, it's unconscionable. Lawsuits have happened that have caused the state to be required to pony up a certain amount of money. It only seems right that the state should require that to be directed to useful purposes. And I'm not a lawyer. However, we find ways all the time to put handcuffs on our schools. These golden handcuffs should require that that money, at a minimum, go into direct teaching and not be used for the 13th assistant superintendent for streamlining, and for, it shouldn't be stuck in the district administrative building. It should be used for supplies, for proper buildings, for paying teachers. Great teachers is what they should, so they stay and they improve, and pay to train them so they stay the great teachers that we need for our kids to have a great future.
Thank you. Vicki.
I would say that whenever we're talking about getting money somewhere, we focus on the revenue side. I would really like to look at as well the other side of the ledger. Look at how much money school districts have. And I'm thinking of the Auditor General's annual reports. I love these reports. They're so accessible. You can read them in a glance. And I want people to remember a number. $422 million. That's how much 2 years ago would have been available for our classrooms, specifically our teachers, had school districts simply directed the same rate of funding today, currently, as they did back in 2000. So right off the bat, there's $422 million. We've also seen several other reports by various research organizations that the spending is going to admin buildings. It's going to, frankly, everything but teachers. And I think they should be held accountable, because that's not fair to our educators.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Vicki. What is your position on bringing back high technology and skilled manufacturing jobs?
Well, Lisa, I am for it. I am in favor. And I think the way that we do that is a couple of things. First, we're already seeing so many businesses come to Arizona because it's a great place to live. So many advantages, and we've got such a wonderful, friendly business climate. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I don't think this gets emphasized enough, we have such a diversified education system, including, traditional public schools that can have various programs, charter schools. The fact that so many different folks can open up charter type schools. What a wonderful way to start with children for whom a traditional approach to education may not work, but you could get wonderful on-the-job training in addition to really high-quality academics. So those are some things I would look at, is making sure that we had an array of options, low tax climate, friendly business climate, that you could kind of do a well-rounded approach.
Thank you. So Dave, you have 30 seconds.
Arizona law used to have a more robust opportunity for students to finish their requirements sooner for a high school diploma, and then take the funding that would have gone to their last year or two, and take that to a community college, to a JTED school, to whatever resource would have allowed them to advance toward the career they wanted. So I understand that we want a minimum standard for graduation, but we need to direct the money efficiently that way as well.
Thank you. Next question, Dave. Education has been a key topic at both the legislature and Senate. What specifically will you do to address issues in education?
I am still stunned, several questions later, that we are only putting about half of the money given to districts into the classroom. I mean, there are a great many issues that we can look at in our education system, but that has to change. I spent 20 years in the Navy in a public administration role centered around facilities, and there are expected percentages. This is what your people cost. This is what their benefits cost. This is what your facilities cost. And our schools are so out of whack in how the superintendents and the boards are spending that money. I'm happy to put more money into the schools, but not if it's just going to go to the district office to build another wing for another set of non-teaching positions. Let's get the money back in the classroom.
Thank you. Vicki, you have 30 seconds.
I absolutely agree. When you see that this is one of the largest portions of our budget, and K-12 education is competing with so many other things, and taxpayers have been so generous. Prop 123, Prop 301 version 1, Prop 301 version 2, and so many other things. I think that we have to hold these folks accountable. We should publicize all the administrative positions we have at the district level. I think people would be shocked if it were all in one place, because virtually all of those positions are high 5 to high 6-figure salaries. That can go to teachers.
Thank you. So this next question, Vicki, is what is your position on school districts being restructured, consolidated? Can you speak to that, please?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Lisa, that's a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, because that was the first research project that I ever worked on when I was at the Goldwater Institute years ago. And it's one of those ideas that superficially, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to get economies of scale, and we're going to get savings, and it's going to go to the classroom, and teachers will have higher pay. The reality is much different. It's because school districts don't exactly operate the way your local mom and pop business does. The savings, as we see, don't trickle down to the classroom. They get soaked up by administration, so administration tends to grow. What I found, what the research shows, actually does more to improve school efficiency and using money wisely, because that's really the goal of consolidation, is competition for students. Without spending a penny more, the economic literature is really clear that you can spend money better, you can improve, you can be more innovative if you're worried that some students will leave. I'd also urge caution. On a case-by-case basis, school district consolidation can work, but there are a lot of negatives, including bigger class sizes, longer travel times, and we haven't seen academic achievement go up. So I would be, other than a case-by-case basis, I'd be very cautious.
Thank you. Dave, your 30 seconds.
Most of my kids went fully or in part to schools within the Paradise Valley Unified School District, one of the largest school districts in the country. And we saw change only once they had direct competition directly with certain schools. The reality is, most kids are not going to leave their local school. But even that small 5 to 10% competition, forcing the school to better themselves and the district to better themselves, means that before my kid did not get to learn anything near Mandarin, now he's functional because they were forced to compete.
Thank you. Dave, the next question is for you. What do you propose to do at the legislature to protect water and preserve water rights in Arizona?
That is a very difficult and very thorny question. It's the lifeblood of our existence here in the desert. And it crosses not only across Arizona, it's between states. We're always battling with California. And we're always having Big Daddy federal government get involved as well, because obviously they're involved with cross-state issues. But within Arizona, where we have the most control, we are still seeing too often regulations that don't fully account for the burden that new development is going to have in a given area. And while the Corporation Commission does better than it once did, it still does not do anywhere near. Look at what's happening in Queen Creek with Johnson Utilities being pushed aside, and EPCOR taking over water distribution. Oversight is not strong enough. And I'm not a big government person. But for vital resources like that, we need more transparency and more oversight, especially when it comes to water.
Thank you. Vicki, your 30 seconds.
I would say that local members of communities have to have far more input, because any community to be without a vital resource like water is truly unconscionable. So I think we have to be much more forward-looking so we don't get into these messes in the future. We have to take a very candid look at our growth, where we're going to grow, and make sure that we don't let, again, I'm thinking of California, that we don't overregulate. We just do enough oversight for public safety, but that we don't overregulate so we can't grow and develop and continue to provide great services.
Thank you. And this will be our last question of the evening. Vicki, this one is for you. What are your views on the taxation of digital goods?
Well, that's a good question and a very timely question. I think as any default, I'm going to be a very low tax, very open, competitive. That's my standpoint. I think rather than, well, we need to tax online goods because we're all taxed over here, so let's share the pain, so we're going to tax you too. I would say, why don't we start rolling back taxes for everybody? I agree in fundamental fairness, but let's not bring everybody low. Let's raise everybody up, and I think lowering the tax burden across the board would be my preferred approach.
Dave, your 30 seconds.
Let's be real, I make my living off of the technology economy that has spawned online stores and such. But that doesn't mean that we are somehow different. We're still businesses. And if brick and mortar's taxed, so should online. We get told that it will kill the industry. Well, if the industry can't survive with the same burdens that your corner convenience store does, then they don't deserve to survive. Taxpayers should not be subsidizing someone's business. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move now to our closing statements. Dave, if you can give us your 1-minute closing statement.
It's been a real pleasure to be here. Very happy to see so many familiar faces. Thank you, Denise Link, for coming, and your husband, Dennis. It's a real pleasure. Appreciate it. I've lived around the world. I spent 20 years in the Navy, understanding and working within government at the federal and state levels, and even with foreign governments like Japan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. I have a lot of experience to bring so that I can hit the ground running on day one. I've also worked across the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, on family issues and protecting parents' rights. We do not need another person who sits there with their arms folded and refuses to talk. We need a legislature where everyone works together, and you will get that from me in the House of Representatives. As an IT professional, I am uniquely suited to help us grow and make sure that our laws, while protecting the rights and future of Arizona, also give us that bright future to walk in together. Thank you to my neighbors who are here.
Thank you. And Vicki.
And Lisa, I would like to again thank you and the Clean Elections Commission and everybody who showed up tonight. We're all very busy, and the fact that we are taking time, something I really appreciate, is we actually get time to talk and ask questions and see each other in person. I really appreciate that. And I am doing this because I'm really tired of just hearing no, or I oppose this, or I want a different culture, and I think it has to start with us individually. I want to work with people who have different viewpoints than I have. I don't care if you're a Republican or an independent. This may not get splashed all over the newspapers when I do my research work. I actually work quite well with Democrats. I find that when you start from a standpoint of reason and respect, if you truly believe that good people can have honest disagreements, you don't have these partisan blow-ups. So I am really looking forward to talking more with you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope you've learned something about me, my positions, who I am. And I hope you'll trust me by electing me to represent you. Thank you again.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum. And to our audience members, we thank all of you who took time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov/voter dashboard for a customized experience to find information on the general election, the candidates, the issues, and to view this debate on demand. Please fill out the debate evaluation form and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight, and you are welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates. Thank you.